Hello there, and welcome to the Sleepy Nature channel. Long before anyone ever made a pill or wrote a prescription, the earth was already growing its own medicine. Every forest, every meadow, every quiet riverbank was a kind of pharmacy, soft and green and humming with life. Tonight, we're going to walk through that world together. We'll visit the plants that humans have trusted for thousands of years, the ones that help people sleep, breathe, heal, and feel held by something gentle. Some of these plants are growing right now, maybe near you, in a forgotten corner of a garden or along a sunlit path. Let's go there slowly, softly, and let the plants do what they've always done. Take care of us. Take a breath. Let your shoulders settle. You don't need to go anywhere. Just let the world come to you. There is a valley somewhere, it doesn't matter exactly where the mornings come in slowly like something poured from a great height, soft and golden and in no hurry at all. The mist sits just above the grass. Birds begin one at a time, and from the soil, from the roots and the old remembered work of rain, thousands of plants are already doing what they were made to do. This is where we begin. The first plant we visit is chamomile. You have probably seen it. Tiny white petals curved gently backward, a yellow center no bigger than a button, growing close to the ground in fields and along roadsides, as if it decided the world's edges were the best places to live. Chamomile has been used for at least 4,000 years. Ancient Egyptians dedicated it to the sun god Ra and used it to bring down fevers. They knew, somehow, without any laboratory, that this small flower had something powerful inside it. What they felt, and what we now understand, is that chamomile contains a compound called epigenin, which fits into receptors in the human brain the way a key fits into a lock, and it tells the mind, you can rest now. It doesn't shout. It doesn't push. It simply opens a door. A warm cup of chamomile tea before bed has been drunk in kitchens and by candlelight for generations. It lowers cortisol, the stress signal in your blood, quietly, the way the evening lowers the temperature of the air. Ancient Greeks used chamomile not only for sleep, but for kidney stones and liver health. They called it chamomile, meaning ground apple, because if you crush a chamomile flower, it smells exactly like a ripe apple just fallen from a tree. The Romans used chamomile in incense and in ceremonies. Medieval European monks grew it in their gardens, those orderly, beautiful monastery gardens where healing and prayer were considered the same kind of work. And today, it is still one of the most consumed herbal teas in the world. Nothing about that has changed. Not the flower, not the way it helps. Near the chamomile, in our imagined valley, something tall and purple is swaying. This is lavender, and it is impossible to walk past it without breathing differently. Your shoulders drop, your jaw loosens. Something in the scent of lavender, a compound called linalool, directly affects the nervous system. Studies have found that inhaling lavender for as little as 15 minutes can reduce anxiety scores by meaningful amounts. It reaches into the body through the nose and touches something ancient. Lavender has been found in Egyptian tombs, tucked inside wrappings of linen, placed there to carry the dead into whatever comes next with something that smelled of peace. The Romans bathed with it. The word lavender may come from the Latin lavare, to wash. Roman soldiers carried lavender on long marches, not just for the smell, but because it was used to clean wounds, Lavender is genuinely antimicrobial. Its oil slows the growth of bacteria and fungi. A soldier in the field, far from any doctor, pressing a handful of lavender against a wound, was doing something real. In the 17th century, glove makers in Grasse, a town in southern France, perfumed their leather with lavender oil. During a plague, those glove makers survived in strangely high numbers. No one is entirely sure why, but lavender was there. In England, bundles of lavender were placed in linen closets and under pillows for as long as anyone could write down. Queen Victoria's household used lavender-scented products extensively. Her ladies kept small sachets in their pockets, pressed against worry. You don't need to do anything with this information. Just let it rest with you. Just know that the plants have been working for a very long time, and they haven't stopped. If you enjoy these gentle stories, feel free to leave a like. It helps more people find their way to this quiet place. And if you have a favorite plant or a memory of a garden, share it in the comments. We'd love to hear it. Now, the morning in our valley is deepening. The sun has climbed high enough to warm the tops of the grasses, and something else is blooming. Something with small, star-shaped blue flowers so bright they seem to be competing with the sky itself. This is Borage, an almost forgotten plant now, but once beloved across the Mediterranean and beyond. Ancient Greeks and Romans believed borage brought courage. They floated its flowers in wine before battles, not because they were careless with wine, but because they believed the flower lifted the spirit and cleared fear from the chest. The Latin phrase, ego borago gaudia semper ago, I, Borage, always bring joy, was written in old herbals in careful, serious ink. Borage leaves contain compounds that support the adrenal glands, the parts of the body that manage stress responses. Drinking borage tea was thought to lift sadness and clear a heavy mind. Pliny the Elder wrote about it. John Evelyn, the 17th century English diarist, mentioned it in his writings on salad plants, noting that it was eaten to revive the hypochondriac and cheer the hard student. Borage flowers are still edible today. They taste faintly of cucumber, clean and cool. Candied, they were placed on cakes in Old English kitchens. Floated in cold water, they turned an ordinary glass into something almost ceremonial. The world is full of these tiny ceremonies. Most of them involve plants. The valley continues. Nothing here is in a hurry. Let us walk now toward the shade where the trees begin. Underneath the canopy, the light comes in pieces, soft, broken, the way light always looks when it has to pass through something alive. The air here is cooler, and on the north-facing slopes, in the damp and quiet places, something is growing that humans have trusted for a very long time. This is Valerian, a tall plant with feathery leaves and small pink-white flowers that cluster at the top in soft pom-poms. It doesn't look powerful, but its root, dug up and dried and steeped into tea, has been used as a sleep remedy since at least the 2nd century AD. The Greek physician Galen prescribed it. The Roman physician Dioscorides wrote about it in his famous De Materia Medica, a book of medicinal plants that was still being copied and consulted more than 1,000 years after it was written. Valerian root contains valerianic acid, which works in a way similar to certain medications. It affects the same receptors in the brain, the ones that calm neural activity. But it does it gently, It does it in conversation with the body rather than in override mode. Medieval monks were reported to wear sachets of Valerian root to calm anxiety. During World War II, Valerian was given to civilians in England to reduce stress from air raids. There is something quietly extraordinary about a plant that has helped people sleep through centuries of change, through empires rising and falling, through the invention of printing presses and electricity and everything else, and is still here in the damp shadows, growing, still ready. Nearby, where the tree roots surface from the soil like old questions, something else is visible. This is St. John's wort, a bright yellow wildflower that blooms around the midsummer solstice, around the feast of St. John the Baptist, which is how it got its name. If you hold a leaf up to the light, you'll see tiny dark dots. Those are actually translucent oil glands full of hypericin, a compound that has been studied extensively for its effects on mood. St. John's wort has been used to treat low spirits and sadness for over 2,000 years. Hippocrates mentioned it. Paracelsus, the Renaissance-era physician who believed in treating the whole person, used it and wrote about it at length. Folk healers across Europe hung it above doors on Midsummer Eve, believing it protected the home from dark energies. What they may have been describing in the language they had was the sense that the plant brought a kind of brightness into the spirit. There is research now showing that St. John's wort influences certain chemical messengers in the brain, the same ones targeted by some modern treatments for depression and anxiety. This is not casual knowledge. This is a convergence between thousands of years of human observation and contemporary science. The plant came first. The understanding came later. It grows in disturbed soils, in meadows, along paths. It finds the places that have been changed and grows there anyway. Bright yellow in the summer sun, it has always reached toward light. And this is something plants do. They reach toward what they need, and in doing so, they offer something back. Breathe here for a moment. Let the forest hold you. We stay under the trees a little longer. There is so much to find here. Ginseng grows in the understory of forests in Korea, China, and the Appalachian Mountains of North America, and has been used as medicine in Asia for at least 5,000 years. Emperor Shennong, the legendary father of Chinese medicine, who is said to have tasted hundreds of plants to understand their effects, listed ginseng as the most important of all herbs. He called it the king of herbs. This is not a modern marketing phrase. This was recorded thousands of years ago. The root of ginseng, when old, sometimes takes shapes that remind people of a human body. 2 legs, 2 arms, a head. This resemblance was taken seriously in older systems of thought, which held that a plant shaped like a body might strengthen the body. The Chinese called it renshin, man root. Oddly, modern research confirms that ginseng does support many body systems simultaneously. It influences immune function, stress hormone regulation, blood sugar balance, and mental clarity. The old intuition was pointing at something true, even if it arrived there through the wrong door. Ginseng adapts the body to stress. It is called an adaptogen, a plant that helps the body find balance whatever direction it needs to go. Stressed, it calms. Fatigued, it energizes. Cold, it warms. People who worked in harsh conditions, farmers, soldiers, sailors, and traditional cultures were often given ginseng. In Korea, red ginseng is still one of the most prestigious gifts a person can give. In the Appalachian Mountains, wild American ginseng was traded by indigenous peoples for centuries before European colonizers arrived. It was so prized that it became one of the first major American exports to China, beginning in the 18th century. Whole communities in Kentucky and Tennessee made their livings harvesting it from the forest floor. It was so intensively collected that it nearly disappeared from those mountains, and in many places it is now protected. Something so valued for so long leaves marks on the land and on the people who lived with it. Ginseng is still here, still offering what it always offered. Let us walk a little further. The trees are thinning. We are coming toward a meadow. Ashwagandha is waiting. This is a plant from the dry regions of India and parts of Africa and the Mediterranean, and it has been used in Ayurvedic medicine, the ancient Indian system of health, for over 3,000 years. Its name in Sanskrit means something like smell of horse, which refers both to its strong scent and to the belief that it could give a person the strength and vitality of a horse. Withanolides, compounds found in ashwagandha root, have been studied for their effects on cortisol, the body's primary stress hormone. When cortisol is chronically high, the body becomes exhausted and inflamed. Ashwagandha seems to lower it, not dramatically, not violently. It simply accompanies the body back toward calm, the way a friend might walk beside you home without needing to speak. In Ayurvedic practice, ashwagandha was given to children to help them grow strong, to adults facing difficult periods, and to the elderly as a general tonic. It was mixed with warm milk and honey at night, a recipe so specific and so delicious sounding that it feels less like medicine and more like being looked after. This is perhaps the most important thing about ancient herbal medicine. It understood that being cared for was itself healing. The ritual of preparation, the warmth of the cup, the smell of the root in the kitchen. These things mattered as much as the molecules inside the plant. The meadow opens before us. Clouds are moving slowly above, and the grass bends in one direction, then another, as the wind passes through it. A slow wave, a green pulse, something breathing. In this meadow, we find Echinacea, a tall purple coneflower native to North America, with petals that droop downward like someone making a very elegant gesture. It was one of the most important medicinal plants for the plains peoples of North America, used by at least 14 different tribal nations. It was pressed into wounds. It was brewed into tea for colds and throat infections. It was applied to burns and toothaches. It was chewed during ceremonies of endurance. European settlers watched and learned and brought Echinacea with them into their own pharmacopoeias. By the late 19th century, it was one of the most prescribed herbal medicines in the United States, until pharmaceutical companies arrived with antibiotics and synthetic drugs in the early 20th century, and the old plant knowledge was quietly shelved, like books put away in a room no one enters anymore. But Echinacea never left. It went on growing in gardens and along prairie paths, and in time, people came back to it. Research has found that Echinacea does measurably support immune function. It increases the activity of white blood cells, the small patrols of the body that find and deal with invaders. It may shorten the duration of the common cold. It may reduce the severity of respiratory infections. The knowledge the Plains peoples held for centuries was accurate. Not far from the coneflowers, something low and spreading catches the eye. Yarrow, a plant with feathery gray-green leaves and flat-topped clusters of tiny white or pale pink flowers. Yarrow's botanical name, Achillea millefolium, refers to Achilles, the Greek hero, who, according to legend, used yarrow to stop the bleeding wounds of his soldiers. This is probably myth, but yarrow really is styptic, meaning it can help slow bleeding. It has also been found in Neanderthal burial sites, which places human interaction with this plant at over 60,000 years ago. 60,000 years. Yarrow was in graves long before writing existed, before cities, before the wheel. Whatever our very early ancestors were doing with it, carrying it close, offering it, using it, they were doing it so consistently that it remained with them even into death. In traditional European folk medicine, yarrow tea was used for fevers, colds, and wound healing. In the Americas, indigenous peoples used it similarly, for fevers, for toothache, for easing childbirth. The same plant on different continents, discovered independently, used for overlapping purposes. This convergence is one of the quiet miracles of plant medicine. Different peoples, separated by oceans and centuries, arriving at the same green answers. If you have a little candle burning near you or a warm drink, let yourself feel it. You are part of a very long line of people who have found comfort in small, warm things. And if you're finding this calming, check out our playlist. There are many more nights like this one waiting for you there, slow and full of green. There is a stream. We find it by sound, a constant softness beneath the other sounds of the meadow, a conversation the water is having with the stones. We follow it, and the plants along its banks are different from those in the open field, darker, more tender, lovers of shade and moisture. Marshmallow root grows here, not the sweet puffed candy, though the candy's name does come from this plant, because its root contains a thick, slippery substance called mucilage that was once used to make confections. The plant itself, Althea officinalis, has been used medicinally since ancient Egypt and Greece. Dioscorides again wrote about it. He recommended it for coughs, sore throats, and irritated stomachs. Marshmallow root's mucilage coats inflamed tissues the way warm rain settles dust, gently, evenly, bringing relief. Ancient Syrians and Egyptians combined the root with honey and made lozenges. Ancient Greeks poulticed it onto wounds. In the Middle Ages, it was grown in kitchen gardens across Europe because every household expected to use it. Abbess Hildegard of Bingen, the 12th century nun and herbalist, whose writings are among the most important records of medieval plant medicine, wrote extensively about marshmallow. Hildegard was remarkable. She wrote 3 books of medicine and natural science, described the healing properties of hundreds of plants, and created a medical system based on balance, temperature, and what she called viriditas, the greening power of nature. The vital force, she believed, existed in all living things and that medicine was meant to support and restore. She ran a monastery, she composed music, she had visions, and she healed people with plants she grew in her garden above the Rhine. She would have known the plant next to the marshmallow too. Skullcap, a member of the mint family, with small blue-purple flowers and a slightly bitter taste. Skullcap has been used by native North American peoples, particularly the Cherokee. as a strong nerve tonic for anxiety and nervous exhaustion, for the kind of tiredness that goes deeper than sleep. In the 19th century, it was one of the most commonly used herbal medicines in America for what doctors then called nervous complaints. It appears in old pharmacopoeias, those careful official books of medicines, listed alongside things we would recognize today. We now know skullcap contains bicholine and other flavonoids that interact with the nervous system in ways consistent with what healers observed. It calms without sedating heavily. It eases anxious thoughts without turning off the mind. There is a gentleness in the way these plants work. They are not sledgehammers. They are conversations. A little further along the stream, the bank opens into a sunny patch, and here is St. Benedict's thistle, also called blessed thistle, a prickly, golden-flowered plant used in European monastic medicine for centuries. It got its name because it was grown in Benedictine monastery gardens, where monks called it a cure for almost everything, which is an exaggeration, but not a wild one. It was used for fevers, digestive troubles, liver health, and as a general tonic for the body after illness. Benedictine liqueur, still made today, contains blessed thistle among dozens of other herbs. Those monastic gardens were perhaps the most important centers of botanical knowledge in medieval Europe. Monks spent decades studying which plants did what, recording their observations in manuscripts, and distributing plants and knowledge between monasteries across the continent. They were the scientists of their time, and their laboratories were gardens. Rest here by the stream. Let the water sound be in your ears. You don't need to remember any of this. Just let it wash through. The stream leads to a wider, slower body of water, a small lake, still as glass, reflecting the sky so perfectly that you can't tell where water ends and air begins. Dragonflies move above it in straight, bright lines. Reeds grow at the edge, their feathery tops combing the gentle breeze. In these wet margins, meadowsweet grows, a tall, creamy flowered plant with a scent like marzipan and honey. Meadowsweet has a remarkable history. It is one of the sacred herbs of the Druids, named alongside mistletoe and vervain in records of ancient Celtic practice. It was strewn on the floors of great halls at feasts. It was placed in wedding garlands. It was drunk as a mead-flavored tea for headaches and fevers and joint pain. Here is the extraordinary part. Meadowsweet contains salicylic acid. So does willow bark, which we will visit soon. And salicylic acid is the precursor to aspirin. In 1853, a chemist synthesized acetylsalicylic acid, what we now call aspirin, partly building on the foundation of what folk medicine had known for centuries. The Bayer Company began marketing it in 1899 as a wonder drug. But before aspirin was a pill, it was meadowsweet. It was willow bark. It was people in pain finding the plants that eased them and passing that knowledge to their children and their children's children for thousands of years. The willow grows at the water's edge, trailing its long hair into the lake. White willow, Salix alba, has been used since at least 400 BC. Hippocrates himself recommended chewing its bark for fever and pain. Ancient Egyptians used it. Ancient Chinese physicians included it in their classical texts. Indigenous peoples across North America used native willow species for the same purposes: pain, fever, inflammation. There is something very moving about this. A person sitting by a river in ancient Greece, a person sitting by a river in ancient China, a person sitting by a river on the other side of the world, thousands of miles and thousands of years apart, all of them finding the same answer in the same kind of tree, the willow, patient by the water, offering its bark. If you are still awake, dear listener, that is perfectly fine. Let your eyes stay soft. Let this story be a river you are floating on. We notice something growing from the trunk of an old lakeside oak, a shelf fungus, large and pale, pressing out from the bark in tears. This is chaga, or something like it. Chaga, Inonotus obliques, grows on birch trees in cold northern forests. It looks less like a mushroom and more like a burnt knot of wood, black outside, deep orange inside, dense and serious. It has been used by Siberian, Russian, and Finnish peoples for centuries, boiled into a tea that is drunk daily as a tonic. Chaga contains betulinic acid, derived from the birch tree it grows on, as well as high concentrations of antioxidants, some of the highest measured in any natural substance. It was used for stomach problems, skin health, and as a general strengthener of the body's defenses. In Russia, during periods when coffee was scarce or expensive, chaga tea was the common morning drink. People made a virtue of what was available. They found it sustained them. An old tree with old medicine growing on it. There is something complete about that. We are going to leave the lake now and walk into the hills. The path rises gently. The air changes, drier, warmer, carrying the scent of sun on stone and the dusty sweetness of herbs that love heat. The Mediterranean is somewhere in these hills, or the memory of it. Rosemary grows here in low gray-green mounds, its needle-like leaves releasing their sharp, warm scent when you brush against them. This is not merely a kitchen herb. Rosemary has been used medicinally for thousands of years across cultures that shared no common language. Ancient Greeks wore rosemary crowns during study, believing it sharpened memory. Students sitting their examinations would tuck sprigs behind their ears. Shakespeare's Ophelia says, "There's rosemary, that's for remembrance." The connection between rosemary and memory is so old and so persistent that it must be pointing at something true. It is. Rosemary contains carnosic acid and 1,8-cineol, compounds that influence acetylcholine, a neurotransmitter involved in memory formation. The smell alone, inhaled for a few minutes, has been found in some studies to improve scores on memory tasks. Ancient intuition meeting modern measurement, arriving at the same conclusion. Rosemary was also burned as an antiseptic in sick rooms and hospitals in Europe well into the 19th century. In France, during epidemics, it was included in mixtures burned in public spaces to purify the air. Whether it worked against airborne illness is uncertain, but rosemary does have antimicrobial properties. Its essential oil inhibits bacterial growth. In hillside Spain and Italy and Greece, rosemary has grown wild for so long that it has become part of the landscape's personality. To eat lamb roasted with rosemary, to drink rosemary-infused oil, to smell it on a hot afternoon walking through the garrigue. These are acts of medicine older than the word medicine. Not far away on these sun-warmed slopes, thyme. Thymus vulgaris, from the Greek thymos, meaning courage or spirit, or possibly from the word thyein, to fumigate. Thyme was burned in temples. It was placed under pillows by ancient Greeks to encourage sleep and brave dreams. The Romans bathed in thyme water before battles. Thyme contains thymol, one of the most powerful natural antiseptics. Modern mouthwashes still use thymol as an active ingredient. Before synthetic antiseptics, thymol from thyme was used to sterilize surgical instruments. It was used as a treatment for whooping cough, bronchitis, and chest infections. And it works. Thymol is genuinely antimicrobial and antifungal. It relaxes bronchial muscles and makes it easier to breathe. An old woman in Provence, making thyme honey for her grandchildren's chest colds, was doing something chemically accurate. And oregano, which grows nearby, often confused with thyme, sharing the same sunny, rocky habitats, contains carvacrol and rosmarinic acid, compounds with anti-inflammatory properties. Oregano has been used for wounds, digestive troubles, and respiratory infections across Greek, Roman, and Arabic medical traditions. Oreganum comes from the Greek for joy of the mountain. The ancients were not wrong about this. These hills smell like the inside of all the oldest kitchens and all the oldest medicine cabinets at once. There is something wonderful I want to share with you before we move on. You can leave us a comment below telling us which herb or plant you feel closest to. The one you grow on your windowsill, or the one your grandmother kept, or the one you are just now meeting for the first time tonight. We genuinely love to read them. We are going deeper into the hills. The path is lined with sage, silver green, dusty, with a slightly bitter scent that seems to come from the earth itself when it thinks no one is looking. Salvia officinalis, from the Latin salvare, to save, to heal. Salvia, the plant whose very name is a declaration of what it does. Sage has been used as medicine for at least 2,000 years in Mediterranean cultures. Pliny the Elder wrote that it promoted longevity and was good for memory and the senses. Arab physicians in the 9th century wrote that sage could help people live so long that death became embarrassed to approach them. Medieval Europeans agreed. There was a saying, cur moriatur homo qui salvia crescit in horto. Why should a man die who grows sage in his garden? This is exaggeration, of course, but sage does contain rosmarinic acid, flavonoids, and compounds that are now being studied for their potential to support cognitive function in aging. There are clinical trials examining sage's effects on memory and attention. It has antioxidant properties. It is antimicrobial. It reduces sweating, which is why it was traditionally given to women going through menopause. Ancient Greek physicians knew this. 16th century English herbalists knew this. The knowledge was continuous. Sage was burned for purification, in temples, in homes, in the clearing of spaces after illness or grief. The practice of smudging with sage in many North American indigenous traditions follows a similar logic and is entirely separate in origin. Two traditions, two continents, same plant, same ceremonial function. Use smoke and scent and intention to make a space clean. Coming over a ridge on these hills, we find ourselves looking down at terraced gardens. Old ones, the kind with stone walls softened by decades of moss, and climbing plants that have been here longer than the walls themselves. And there, in the shadiest corner, lemon balm. Melissa officinalis, the bee's herb. Melissa is the Greek word for honeybee. The bees love it, and it loves them back, producing nectar abundantly. But it also offers something to people, a light, citrus green calm. Lemon balm has been used to ease anxiety and insomnia since at least ancient Greece. where Dioscorides recommended it steeped in wine. Avicenna, the 11th century Persian physician and philosopher whose canon of medicine was used in European universities for 500 years, called lemon balm a herb that cheers the heart and drives away anxiety. Lemon balm contains rosmarinic acid, yes, again the same compound in sage and rosemary, which inhibits the breakdown of GABA, a calming neurotransmitter in the brain. This keeps GABA around longer, which allows the nervous system to stay in its quieter, lower gear. It is the chemistry of settling. In Carmelite convents, beginning in the 14th century, nuns made an elixir called eau de mélisse de Carme, Carmelite water, from lemon balm and other herbs, distilled and kept in small bottles. It was used for headaches, nervousness, and general upset. The formula was closely guarded and used for centuries. It is still made today. The night is beginning to come now. Not fully, just the beginning of it. The sky in the west is turning the color of old amber, and the first star has appeared directly overhead, still pale, still unsure of itself. The herbs on the hills release their scents more fully in the cooling air, as if they are exhaling what they have held all day. Let's walk toward something resinous, something older. Frankincense comes from the resin of boswellia trees, gnarled, improbable-looking trees that grow in the dry, rocky hills of the Horn of Africa and the Arabian Peninsula, pushing their roots into limestone and making something ancient from nothing. When you cut the bark, the resin seeps out and hardens into small amber tears. Those tears are frankincense, and they have been burned in temples and churches and homes for at least 5,000 years. Egyptian tomb paintings show frankincense being traded. It was burned in the temple in Jerusalem. It is still used in Orthodox Christian churches, in Buddhist ceremonies, in Sufi practices, in the Ayurvedic tradition. It crosses every religious boundary. It exists before all of them. What does it do medicinally? The compounds in frankincense, boswellic acids, have anti-inflammatory properties. Research has found them promising for conditions involving chronic inflammation, certain joint conditions, inflammatory bowel issues, possibly even some respiratory conditions. These are serious claims being investigated with serious methods. The frankincense traders who carried their precious resin across the ancient world on camel roads through the desert were trading something genuinely valuable, not merely ritually meaningful. And myrrh, the other sacred resin from Commiphora trees growing in the same dry landscapes, has been used for wound healing and oral health for millennia. It is genuinely antimicrobial. Ancient Egyptians used it in embalming. Medieval physicians used it in wound pastes. Myrrh appears in the world's oldest medical texts, the Ebers Papyrus from ancient Egypt, and in the ancient Indian and Chinese pharmacopoeias. Modern research confirms that myrrh extracts inhibit the growth of certain bacteria and fungi and may support wound healing. Two resins from two trees in the driest, stoniest landscapes, and between them, thousands of years of healing. Frankincense and myrrh were gifts brought to the Christ child in the Christian tradition, not because they were exotic luxuries, but because they were medicine, the most precious things a traveler could carry. The stars are more certain now. The west is darkening. And down the hill, in a garden that seems to glow slightly in the dusk, this is perhaps imagined, perhaps not, we see something violet, and pointed. Wisteria? No. Agastache? Purple cone? No. This is catnip, Nepeta cataria, a humble and somewhat comical plant famous for reducing cats to joyful helplessness. But for humans, it is a gentle nervine. It calms. It eases headaches and tension. It was used for centuries as a mild sedative for restless children and anxious adults. A tea brewed gently from its leaves is soft and quiet on the stomach. And near it, passion flower, Passiflora incarnata, with its extraordinary clockwork flowers, intricate, precise, lavender and white, looking as if an engineer designed them while dreaming. Passion flower grows wild in the southeastern United States and has been used by Cherokee, Creek, and other indigenous peoples for generations as a sleep-inducing herb for wound healing and to ease worry. The Spanish missionaries in the Americas named it for the Passion of Christ because they saw in its flower structure imagery from the crucifixion story. But the plant was already medicine long before that renaming. Flavonoids in passion flower, including chrysin, interact with receptors in the brain in ways that reduce anxiety without impairing memory or coordination. It quiets without shutting down. It helps. Do take a moment, if you haven't already, to check out our playlist. There are stories about forests, oceans, birds, and rain, all in the same slow and sleepy style. They will be there when you need them, on any night. Let us go into the forest now. A proper old forest, not a managed one. A forest where no one has cleared anything in a very long time. Where moss grows on everything. Where the trees are enormous and patient and indifferent to the century. This is the kind of forest where you feel small in a comfortable way. The way you feel small looking at stars. Not diminished, just properly sized. Reishi mushroom, Ganoderma lucidum, grows on the base and stumps of hardwood trees, mostly oak. It is a large, kidney-shaped fungus, lacquered-looking, deep red-brown, with a pale growing edge, so polished it seems unreal. In Chinese medicine, it is called lingji, the mushroom of immortality, the mushroom of spiritual potency. It has been described in Chinese texts for at least 2,000 years. It is one of the oldest, continuously documented medicines in the world. Reishi contains beta-glucans, polysaccharides, and triterpenes that modulate the immune system, not stimulating it blindly, but helping it find its correct calibration. There is research into Reishi's effects on sleep, specifically on non-REM sleep depth. There is research on its role in reducing fatigue. There is research on its potential role in supporting the body during illness. Much of this research is ongoing, but it is serious research conducted in serious institutions, taking seriously what Chinese physicians have always known. In Japan, Reishi is called manintake, the 10,000-year mushroom. The reverence in that name is real. People who spent time in these forests noticed the mushroom. They made preparations from it. They gave it to emperors and elders. They kept giving it for thousands of years. The knowledge didn't disappear. It accumulated. Beneath the reishi tree, something ferny and soft covers the ground. This is wood sorrel, tiny heart-shaped leaves in threes, small white or yellow flowers, a clean sour taste. Children know it immediately as the sour leaf. For centuries it was eaten to prevent scurvy. It contains vitamin C. On long sea voyages and in winter, when fresh vegetables were scarce, Scottish Highlanders ate it raw Native Americans across the continent use similar oxalis species as food and medicine. It is small and easily overlooked, but it has saved lives in quiet ways throughout history. Further into the forest, where an old beech tree has created a clearing by outliving everything around it, we find Solomon's seal, a graceful plant with arching stems and small, pendant white flowers. The root has been used for millennia in Chinese and European herbalism for joint injuries, connective tissue repair, and the kind of deep body achiness that comes from old strains and long winters. It is not dramatic in its action, but it is consistent and ancient. There are herbalists today who consider it one of the most underused plants in the Western pharmacopoeia. The forest doesn't hurry any of this. The beech is 300 years old. The Solomon seal has grown in its shadow for decades. Whatever they have to offer, they offer without urgency. The forest floor is soft underfoot. The moon, when it rises above the canopy, is very round and very white, not harsh, just present. We are going to visit a few more plants tonight, moving slowly, and then we will let the night settle completely. Milk thistle, Silybum marianum, is a Mediterranean plant with startlingly dramatic appearance. Large, spiny leaves, veined in white, tall stems, and deep purple flowers at the top. It was used in ancient Rome and Greece for liver complaints and snakebite. In the Middle Ages, Hildegard of Bingen and other European herbalists used it for jaundice and liver conditions. The legend attached to it is that the white veins on its leaves came from a drop of the Virgin Mary's milk falling on the plant, hence its common name. Whether or not you find that legend meaningful, the medicine is real. Silymarin, extracted from milk thistle seeds, is one of the most rigorously studied plant compounds in modern herbalism. It protects liver cells from damage. It supports the regeneration of liver tissue. It is used in hospitals in Europe and Asia for poisoning from toxic mushrooms, specifically for cases of Amanita phalloides, the death cap, which destroys the liver. Milk thistle can slow this destruction enough to save lives. That is not folklore. That is emergency medicine using a plant that has been known for 2,000 years. And turmeric, Curcuma longa, has been used in India for at least 4,000 years. In Ayurvedic medicine, as a digestive, a wound healer, an anti-inflammatory, and a general tonic of extraordinary versatility. In South and Southeast Asian cooking, it is inseparable from daily life. It colors rice and curries and golden milk that, in the last decade, has become popular worldwide. The active compound in turmeric is curcumin, and it has been studied in thousands of scientific papers for its effects on inflammation, oxidative stress, and numerous chronic conditions. The bioavailability of curcumin is low on its own, but traditional Ayurvedic preparations always combine turmeric with black pepper, which contains piperine, which increases curcumin absorption by up to 2,000%. The ancients didn't know the chemistry, but they knew the combination worked. They discovered it through observation and kept it through tradition. This keeps happening. The traditional preparation is always somehow optimized. The folk remedy is always somehow correct. The accumulated wisdom of thousands of people over thousands of years, tasting and watching and recording and passing it on. It is not perfect, and it is not infallible, but it is not nothing. It is everything, really. And ginger, the warm, bright, slightly sharp root of Zingiber officinale, has been used across Asia, Africa, and the Middle East for digestion, nausea, colds, and joint pain for at least 5,000 years. It appears in ancient Sanskrit texts, in Chinese medical records dating back to the 4th century BC, in ancient Roman trade records, in medieval Arab pharmacopoeias, in the writings of European apothecaries. Sailors on long voyages took ginger for seasickness, and it works. Gingerol and shogaol, the active compounds, affect receptors in the digestive system. They reduce nausea, stimulate digestive movement, and have anti-inflammatory properties. The cold tea of ginger that your grandmother made was medicine. The ginger biscuits kept by the bedside were medicine. The thin coins of pickled ginger alongside sushi are medicine. The body knows it, even when we forget the word for knowing. We are a long way into the night now. The dew is forming on the grasses. Somewhere in the distance, an owl speaks once, then decides against it. Let us visit something that grows in warm places in the wide sky landscapes of Africa and the Americas. Aloe vera. Aloe barbadensis, with its thick succulent leaves full of clear gel, has been used for healing skin since at least the 4th century BC. Aristotle, the story goes, persuaded Alexander the Great to conquer the island of Socotra specifically to secure the aloe supply for healing his soldiers' wounds. Whether or not that story is true, aloe was valued enough to inspire it. Egyptian papyri record aloe as one of the plants of immortality. Cleopatra reportedly used its gel on her skin. It was listed in the Ebers Papyrus, the oldest known medical document. It was used in ancient China, India, and the Americas by peoples who had no contact with Egypt. Again, the convergence, the same plant, discovered independently, used for the same purposes. Aloe gel contains polysaccharides that soothe and protect damaged skin, reduce inflammation, and support healing. It has been found to promote wound closure, reduce pain from minor burns, and support skin hydration. It is entirely non-toxic on skin, safe for adults and children alike. Ancient Mexicans called it the wand of heaven. The Swahili word for it translates to something close to source of bitter medicine with healing virtue. The bitterness is the aloein in the outer leaf, not the clear gel, which is pure, transparent, cool. To cut an aloe leaf and press the gel onto a burn is to do something humans have done without interruption for at least 4,000 years. The leaf is still here, the burn still hurts, the plant still helps. In the same warm places where aloe thrives, hibiscus, the great ruby red flower that makes a tart tea loved across West Africa, Egypt, and Central America. Hibiscus sabdarifa, the roselle, has been drunk as a cooling tea for centuries. Egyptian pharaohs drank it. It was traded across Africa and the Middle East. In Mexico, it is called Jamaica and is drunk ice cold at every market. In West Africa, it is called bissap and is the color of celebration. Hibiscus contains anthocyanins, the pigments that make it red, and these compounds have been found to support healthy blood pressure and act as antioxidants. Studies in multiple countries have found regular hibiscus tea consumption associated with measurable effects on blood pressure. The traders who carried dried hibiscus petals across trade routes were unknowingly trading medicine. The women who steeped it for their families every day were practicing health care. The color of it, that deep, warm red in a glass, is itself a kind of medicine. There are things the eyes need, We are in a garden now, not a wild place, but a cultivated one. An old woman's garden, perhaps, or an old man's, the kind with terracotta pots and climbing roses and a fig tree in the corner that has been there so long it has become part of the wall. Elderflower and elderberry come from the elder tree, Sambucus nigra, a tree so steeped in European folk tradition that entire books have been written about the beliefs surrounding it. In England, Denmark, and Germany, it was considered unlucky to cut an elder without asking the elder mother, the spirit of the tree, for permission. You would bow or knock on the bark and wait. Only then would you cut. Behind this superstition is something practical. The elder was too valuable to damage carelessly. Its flowers, made into cordial or tea, were drunk for colds, fever, and as a spring tonic. Its berries, cooked and made into syrup, were given for the same. Elderberry syrup has been made in European kitchens since at least the medieval period, and possibly much longer. It appears in John Evelyn's writings, in herbals of the 16th and 17th centuries, in apothecary records. Elderberry has now been studied in clinical trials and found to reduce the duration of influenza infections. The same elderberry syrup kept in pantries for centuries, given to children with chest colds, does something measurable. The elder mother, apparently, was correct. Also in this garden, calendula, the pot marigold, with its bright orange and yellow flowers so profuse and cheerful, they seem to be having a very good time, regardless of circumstances. Calendula has been used for wound healing, skin inflammation, and digestive disorders since ancient Rome. Its petals were dried and stored in every apothecary in medieval Europe. They were added to broths and soups to add color and supposedly to strengthen the heart. Calendula contains flavonoids and triterpenoids that reduce inflammation and support skin repair. It is one of the mildest and safest topical herbs, used safely on newborn skin and on surgical wounds. The bright orange color comes from carotenoids, the same group of antioxidant pigments found in carrots and tomatoes. Calendula petals can be scattered on salads and eaten. They were used as a substitute for saffron to color rice and custards. They taste faintly of honey and pepper, an edible flower that heals wounds and colors food golden. The elder mother approves, and the calendula simply continues to bloom. It is very late now. The garden is quiet. Everything is in its place. There is still something to tell you, a few more plants to visit, and then the night will be completely ready for you. Holy basil, or tulsi, is considered the most sacred plant in the Hindu tradition. Ocimum sanctum, sanctified basil. It grows in a pot in the courtyard of almost every traditional Indian home, tended with care, watered daily. It is sacred to Vishnu. Garlands of tulsi are offered in temple rituals. Beads made from its woody stem are worn as spiritual protection. But tulsi is also medicine. In Ayurveda, it is called the Queen of Herbs and the Elixir of Life. It is given for colds, fever, stress, and as a daily tonic for resilience. Research has found tulsi to be an adaptogen similar to ashwagandha. It helps the body regulate cortisol, supports immune function, and has antimicrobial properties. Its essential oil contains eugenol, which is also found in cloves and is a powerful antiseptic. People who grew up with tulsi in their courtyards were growing up with both a sacred symbol and a daily medicine, without any separation between those two things. The plant held both. Neither was diminished by the other. In Iran and the surrounding regions, the Persian sphere of culture, which extended from Central Asia to Egypt at its height, saffron was used medicinally for thousands of years. The red stigmas of Crocus sativus, dried and dissolved in warm water or milk, were given for mood, for memory, for menstrual pain, for depression. Persian poetry is full of saffron. The color of it, golden, warm, the color of the sun distilled, was considered healing in itself. Saffron contains crocin and safranal, compounds that influence serotonin pathways. Recent clinical trials have compared saffron to common antidepressants in mild to moderate depression and found effects that were meaningfully similar. This is remarkable. Saffron is one of the most expensive spices in the world, painstakingly hand-harvested from small purple crocuses, and it has been used as medicine for over 3,000 years. And the research is catching up to what the physicians of Avicenna's tradition knew. There is also cinnamon, the warm bark of Cinnamomum verum, rolled into scrolls, traded for thousands of years from Sri Lanka through Arab merchants to Europe, at prices so high that it was considered a luxury equal to gold. Ancient Egyptians imported it for embalming and offerings. Medieval Europeans used it for digestion, warmth, and as a preservative. Cinnamon is antimicrobial. It slows the growth of certain bacteria and molds. Research has found that regular cinnamon consumption supports healthy blood sugar balance. The spice rack in every kitchen is an old medicine cabinet that no one relabeled. Let yourself breathe here. The night is very soft. We have traveled a long way tonight, from a misty morning valley to forest floors, from Mediterranean hillsides to old garden courtyards, from the banks of rivers to the rocky slopes where resin trees grow patient and extraordinary. And everywhere the plants have been there. They were there before us. They will be there long after us. And in between, they have been generous in every direction. There is something called Bacopa monieri, a small creeping water plant that grows in the wetlands of India, Australia, and parts of the Americas. In Ayurvedic medicine, it is called Brahmi, named for the creator god, and used for memory, learning, and the kind of mental clarity that allows understanding to settle in. Ancient texts specify giving it to children during their studies, to scholars preparing for important work, to anyone who needed their mind to be clear and present. Research has found Bacopa to contain bacoacides, which appear to protect neurons and support the signaling between them. There are studies, not all conclusive, but some promising, showing effects on memory recall and learning speed. The tradition of giving it to students was not wrong, and hawthorn, Crataegus species, the flowering, thorny hedge plant of English country lanes, with its white blossom in spring and red berries in autumn. Hawthorn has been used for heart health in European folk medicine since at least the 15th century. Its berries and flowers contain flavonoids and oligomeric proanthocyanidins that support the strength and efficiency of the heart muscle and the tone of blood vessels. German Commission E, the respected scientific body that evaluates herbal medicine evidence, has approved hawthorn for use in supporting healthy heart function. The hedge plant in the lane, covered in white flowers in May, is medicine. And nettle, Urtica dioica, the stinging nettle that grabbed at your ankles in childhood, leaving that white, itching rash, Nettle has been eaten as food and used as medicine since Neolithic times. It is rich in iron, calcium, magnesium, and vitamins A and C. It was eaten in spring when other vegetables were scarce and the body needed green things. Roman soldiers in Britain, in the cold damp of a province they hadn't asked to conquer, rubbed nettles on their own legs to generate warmth, the sting causing blood to rush to the surface of the skin. They planted nettle wherever they camped, bringing seeds from home. Britain's nettle population is partly Roman. Nettle tea has been used for generations, for allergies, for joint pain, for general strength. Research has found anti-inflammatory compounds in it, and there is modest evidence for its use in supporting kidney function and prostate health. The stinging plant that everyone avoids is also the plant that has fed and strengthened people in difficult seasons for thousands of years. There are so many more. There are hundreds more. There is Haritaki and Triphala from the Ayurvedic tradition. There is astragalus from Chinese medicine. There is cat's claw from the Amazon. There is rhodiola from the cold northern heights. There is pau d'arco from South American forests. There is black seed, Nigella sativa, used across the Islamic world, of which the Prophet is quoted as saying it is a cure for everything except death. Every culture that has ever lived on this earth has found in the plants around it something useful, something that helped. The knowledge was always here. The plants have always been here, and they are still here, quiet and patient, in gardens and hedgerows and forests and the cracks of city pavements, growing as they always have, with a kind of silent, reliable generosity. Tonight, you have visited them, and they are glad for the company. Here is your full 15-part story for the Sleepy Nature channel. Each part is a gentle, flowing continuation. No greetings or farewells in between, just one long, soft journey through the ancient world of healing plants. The stream follows the gentle curve of the land, and you follow the stream, walking slowly through the soft light of midday, where the trees filter the sun into something manageable and lovely. The world here is green in 100 different shades, from the deep, almost black of the shadowed ground beneath old roots, to the bright yellow-green of new leaves at the very top of young saplings catching the full light. Here, in a particularly soft and shaded spot, you notice a plant with large, pale green leaves shaped vaguely like hearts. This is comfrey. In older English, it was called knitbone, which tells you almost everything you need to know about how it was used. For more than 2,000 years, comfrey was the go-to plant for healing broken bones, sprains, bruises, and torn muscles. Ancient Greek physicians used it in poultices applied directly to the skin over broken limbs. Medieval healers packed comfrey root around splints and bandages. European settlers brought it with them to the Americas specifically because of its reputation as a healer. Comfrey contains a compound called allantoin, which promotes cell division and growth. Applied to the skin, it genuinely accelerates the healing of superficial wounds, bruises, and muscle strains. Modern studies on topical comfrey preparations have confirmed significant reductions in pain and swelling in sprained ankles and lower back pain. The plant does not literally knit bones in the way the old name suggests, but it does support the healing of the soft tissue surrounding breaks, and it reduces inflammation dramatically. The medieval healers who wrapped comfrey poultices around swollen joints were doing something that a sports medicine practitioner would not disagree with today. There is a kind of reassurance in that. The ancient world was full of careful observers, people who watched and recorded and refined over centuries what worked and what did not. They did not have laboratories, but they had something perhaps equally powerful: time and attention, and the motivation that came from needing urgently to help the people they loved. Nearby, you notice the ground is dotted with a plant most people would consider a weed. It has slightly jagged leaves, a modest stem, and when it flowers, it produces tiny yellow blooms that most people never look at closely. This is plantain, not the banana relative, but the plant Plantago major, which has been growing alongside human beings for so long and so persistently that some indigenous American peoples called it white man's footsteps, because it appeared wherever European settlers walked. It followed humans. It was almost as if it knew it was needed. Plantain has been used in Europe, Asia, Africa, and the Americas as a wound herb. A bruised leaf pressed against a bee sting or a small cut provides immediate, measurable relief. The leaf contains compounds that are anti-inflammatory and antimicrobial. Historically, soldiers carried plantain in their field kits. Native American healers used it for wounds, insect bites, and respiratory conditions. It was boiled into a syrup for coughs. Modern research has confirmed that plantain does indeed have anti-inflammatory, antimicrobial, and wound-healing properties. This plant, which most people spray with weed killer, has been quietly healing things since long before any of us were born. You kneel in the soft ground and look at a plantain plant at the edge of the path. You see it differently now, not a weed, a healer, a companion, something that has walked beside human beings across thousands of years, asking for nothing, offering everything quietly. Please do share this video with someone who might need a peaceful night, and check out the rest of our playlist for more gentle journeys just like this one. The light has shifted while you were not watching. The sun has moved and the shadows have grown longer, and the air has taken on the particular quality of late afternoon, gold and slow and full of that feeling that belongs only to the hour before evening, when the world begins to settle itself in for the night. You have been walking a long time, but you are not tired in the way that exhausts. You are tired in a way that feels earned and gentle, the way your body feels after a long, unhurried day in a quiet place. You come to a hillside where the grasses are longer and wilder, dotted with flowers in deep purples and bright yellows, and the pale, milky white of things that bloom best in half-light. Among them, you notice a cluster of plants with fine silvery gray leaves, soft to look at, and if you were to touch them, softer still. This is Artemisia, more commonly known as mugwort, or in its sweeter form, sweet wormwood. The genus Artemisia contains some of the most powerful plant medicines in human history. Mugwort has been burned and brewed and placed beneath pillows across Asia, Europe, and the Americas for thousands of years. In traditional Chinese medicine, dried mugwort is burned near the skin in a practice called moxibustion, used to stimulate circulation and treat chronic pain. In European folk tradition, mugwort was considered a dream herb, believed to intensify and clarify dreams when placed beneath the pillow. Travelers used it to ward off fatigue, Midwives used it to ease difficult labors. But perhaps the most remarkable medicine to come from the Artemisia family is artemisinin, extracted from Artemisia annua, sweet wormwood. Artemisinin is one of the most effective treatments for malaria ever discovered. It works faster and more powerfully than many synthetic drugs. The compound was identified by Chinese scientist Tu Youyou, who won the Nobel Prize in Medicine in 2015 for this discovery. And she found it by searching ancient Chinese herbal texts, specifically a 1,500-year-old document describing the use of sweet wormwood for fever. The ancient healers had already found it. The modern scientist followed their directions. That is one of the most extraordinary facts in all of plant medicine. A Nobel Prize won by following a recipe written 1,500 years ago. The earth knew, the healers knew. They simply wrote it down and waited for the world to catch up. The silvery artemisia sways gently on the hillside. The light behind it is golden and warm. You breathe in slowly, and the air on the hillside smells of dry grass and something faintly aromatic, clean, and a little wild. Your body feels heavy with a very comfortable kind of tiredness. Your eyes rest on the soft hillside and the soft sky beyond it, and for a moment, everything is perfectly, utterly still. If this story is helping you drift toward sleep, please leave us a comment below. We read everyone, and they fill us with warmth. And do check our playlist for more stories from this quiet corner of the world. Growing beside the artemisia in a low rosette close to the ground, you notice another silver-gray plant, this one with deeply lobed leaves and a delicate, lacy appearance. This is Yarrow. Yarrow's Latin name is Aquileia millefolium, named for Achilles of Greek legend, who was said to have used it to stop the bleeding of his soldiers' wounds in battle. Whether that story is true or not, the use of yarrow for wounds is ancient and well documented. Neanderthal burial sites have been found, with pollen evidence suggesting yarrow flowers were placed with the dead, which means that the relationship between human beings and yarrow may be at least 60,000 years old. 60,000 years, long before writing, long before farming, long before cities or roads or language as we know it. Someone placed yarrow with their dead, which means they knew it and valued it and wanted to mark its importance. Yarrow stops bleeding. When applied to a wound, compounds in the plant cause blood vessels to constrict and help platelets to clump together. The mechanisms are real and measurable. It also has anti-inflammatory and antimicrobial properties, making it a genuinely useful wound herb. Native Americans used it. European herbalists used it. Traditional Chinese and Ayurvedic practitioners used it. The plant found its way into nearly every healing tradition on Earth independently, because the Earth placed it almost everywhere, and careful observers noticed what it could do. The hillside gives way to something different as the light continues its slow slide toward evening. You find yourself at the edge of a low-lying area where the ground is covered in soft moss, and the trees here are older and more widely spaced, their trunks great dark pillars rising from the green. The air is cooler here and damp, and smells of earth and old wood, and the particular sweetness of things that decompose slowly and quietly, returning to the ground they came from. In this soft, mossy place, you notice clusters of a plant that at first seems to be floating. Its leaves are large and broad, but they are lifted on long, slender stems that sway even without any wind, making the whole plant look alive in a particular way. This is marshmallow. The actual plant, Althea officinalis, from which the sweet was originally made. The confection now called marshmallow was once a genuine medicine. The root was boiled with sugar and egg whites to make a soothing lozenge for sore throats. The ancient Egyptians used the root mixed with honey to soothe sore throats and digestive complaints. Ancient Greeks used it as a food and a medicine, particularly for the treatment of inflamed and irritated membranes. Marshmallow root contains a thick, gel-like substance called mucilage. When this mucilage gets wet, it expands and coats whatever surface it touches, including irritated mucous membranes. This is why it soothes sore throats so effectively. It literally lays a smooth, cool, protective coating over the inflamed tissue, reducing friction and irritation and giving the body time to heal. It has the same effect in the digestive tract, easing gastritis and heartburn and the discomfort of inflammatory bowel conditions. This is not a metaphor. The plant physically coats and soothes the places that hurt. The ancient healers who gave it to people with sore throats were providing a very tangible kind of comfort. There is something deeply moving about a plant that works the way kindness does, by simply covering the hurt place gently, asking nothing, holding the space while healing happens. Beyond the marshmallow, in the deepening shadow of the old trees, you notice something that seems almost to glow with its own faint light. Clusters of bright red berries on a low spreading plant with small, waxy leaves. This is bearberry, also known as uva ursi. It grows in cool, shaded places across the northern hemisphere, and it has been used as a medicine by indigenous peoples across North America, Europe, and Asia for a very long time. Bears eat the berries, which is where the name comes from, and bears are perhaps the most reliable of all foragers. They know what is good. The leaves of bearberry, brewed into a tea, have been used for centuries to treat urinary tract infections. The active compound, arbutin, is converted in the body to hydroquinone, which is antimicrobial in the urinary tract specifically. Traditional Native American healers, traditional European herbalists, and traditional Chinese practitioners all use bearberry for the same purpose: for painful, difficult urination, for infection, for the discomfort of bladder trouble. Modern research has confirmed the antimicrobial activity of arbutin in urine, and bearberry extract continues to be studied as an alternative to antibiotics for uncomplicated urinary tract infections. 3 traditions, 3 continents, 1 plant, 1 consistent use. The earth placed the medicine where the need was, and the careful people found it. The mossy clearing is very quiet. Above you, through the wide-spaced trees, you can see that the sky has begun to shift from its daytime blue to something softer. The faintest suggestion of lilac at the horizon, the earliest warning of approaching evening. Your body recognizes this light the way bodies always have, from long before electric lights changed what the end of day meant. Something in you settles at the sight of that softening sky. Something in you knows that rest is coming and is glad. Evening arrives the way good things always arrive, gradually, without fanfare, so that you only notice it has happened when it is already entirely there. The sky overhead is a deep, warm blue, and the first stars are beginning to appear, faint and patient, the way stars are before full dark, when they have to insist a little less to be seen. The air has cooled, and everything in the world smells more intensely now. The damp earth, the old leaves, the water somewhere nearby. You have come to a small cottage at the edge of the wood. Its windows glow with warm light, and around its walls there are gardens, not formal, not arranged, but planted the way a healer would plant, which is to say, practically, with attention to use rather than symmetry. Everything here is planted because it does something. Closest to the door, where it would be easiest to reach in an emergency, there grows a thick-leafed, succulent plant with long tapering leaves edged with small, soft spines. This is aloe vera. It is one of the oldest recorded medicinal plants in the world. The earliest written reference to aloe vera appears in an Egyptian papyrus from approximately 1500 years before the Common Era, the Ebers Papyrus, which describes it as a treatment for burns, skin inflammations, and infections. Ancient Egyptians called it the plant of immortality and placed it among the offerings in pharaonic tombs. Ancient Greek and Roman physicians used it. Traditional healers across Africa, the Caribbean, and Latin America used it. It is found in one form or another in the healing traditions of every warm climate culture that ever encountered it. The gel inside an aloe vera leaf is a remarkable substance. It contains compounds that are anti-inflammatory, that accelerate wound healing, that soothe burned and irritated skin. When you burn yourself and apply aloe gel directly from the leaf, the relief is immediate and real, not imagined, not placebo. The plant genuinely reduces the inflammatory response, promotes the regeneration of damaged tissue, and creates a protective, cooling layer over the wound. Modern wound care still uses aloe in many preparations. The ancient Egyptians, who pressed the fresh gel from the leaf and applied it to burns, were doing precisely what modern science would recommend. Beyond the aloe, a little further along the cottage wall, there is something that looks almost like a small shrub, but has the personality of a tree. This is rosemary, Rosmarinus officinalis, whose name means dew of the sea, because it grows in Mediterranean coastal areas where the air is full of moisture and the plant can drink from the fog. Rosemary has been used as a medicinal herb for more than 2,000 years. Ancient Greeks and Romans used it as a symbol of remembrance and placed it at both weddings and funerals. Scholars in medieval times wore rosemary wreaths while studying, believing it sharpened the memory and improved concentration. The expression here comes from Shakespeare's Ophelia. There's rosemary, that's for remembrance, and it reflects something very old. Modern research has found that compounds in rosemary, particularly a compound called rosmarinic acid, do appear to inhibit the breakdown of acetylcholine, a brain chemical crucial to memory and cognition. Breathing the aroma of rosemary essential oil has been found in studies to improve memory performance on standardized tests. The medieval scholars who wore rosemary while they studied may actually have been helping themselves. The scent of rosemary activates the mind in a measurable way. The ancient world's connection between rosemary and memory was not purely symbolic. It was based on something real. If you would like to see more stories from this garden and this forest and this quiet world of plants, please do subscribe and check our playlist. We have many more nights of gentle exploration waiting for you. The rosemary bush smells intensely good in the cooler evening air. You breathe it in and feel, oddly, a little clearer. Your thoughts briefly sharpened the way they are sometimes sharpened by the cold or by something unexpectedly beautiful. Then you let the thought go and rest your attention on the soft glow of the cottage windows and the growing dark of the sky and the first handful of stars that have now settled into their places for the night. Inside the cottage garden, the plants grow close together in that companionable way of old gardens, where nothing is wasted and everything has a neighbor. You walk slowly along the narrow path between the beds, and the evening air is full of scent. Not overwhelming, but layered, the way good things often are. A little mint, a little sage, a little something sweetly earthy that you cannot quite place. You stop in front of a plant with soft, slightly fuzzy leaves in a gentle gray-green, and small blue-purple flowers arranged in delicate whorls along the stem. This is sage, Salvia officinalis, and its name comes from the Latin salvare, meaning to heal or to save. The Romans believed sage was so powerful that they had a saying, "Why would a man die who grows sage in his garden?" That is an old way of saying what modern herbalists might put more cautiously. Sage is remarkably useful. Ancient Egyptians used it to promote fertility. Greeks and Romans used it to preserve meat and to heal wounds. In medieval Europe, sage was perhaps the most important medicinal herb in the monastery garden. It was used for everything from toothache to memory problems to sore throats to menopausal hot flashes. What sage does is still being studied, but several things are known. It is antimicrobial and anti-inflammatory. It improves memory and cognitive performance in measurable ways. Similar to rosemary, it inhibits the breakdown of acetylcholine in the brain. A cup of sage tea has been shown to significantly reduce hot flashes in menopausal women. Sage leaf contains compounds that have estrogenic activity, meaning they weakly mimic estrogen in the body, which is why it eases symptoms of estrogen decline. The medieval herbalists who gave sage to women in the change of life were doing something that worked, even if they did not know why. Sage smells ancient. It is one of those scents that seems to carry time in it. When you breathe sage, you are breathing something that healers have breathed in every century for as long as human beings have kept gardens. There is a continuity in that, a kind of comfort. Beside the sage, almost leaning against it in the evening cool, there is a plant with woody stems and tiny, dark green, needle-like leaves that look like something you might find on a miniature pine tree. This is thyme. Thyme has been used as a medicine since antiquity. The ancient Egyptians used it in the embalming process because of its powerful antimicrobial properties. They needed something that would prevent decay, and they found it in thyme. Ancient Greeks burned thyme as incense in temples, believing the smoke purified the air and gave courage to those who breathed it. The English word thyme may even come from the Greek word for courage. The active compound in thyme, thymol, is genuinely and powerfully antimicrobial. It kills a wide range of bacteria and fungi. Thymol is still used today in some modern antiseptic mouthwashes and cleaning products. In traditional herbal medicine, thyme tea was given for coughs and bronchitis, because thymol also relaxes the smooth muscle of the airways and helps to loosen mucus. A particularly interesting modern discovery, thyme has been found in at least one well-designed study to be as effective as a leading pharmaceutical cough syrup for acute bronchitis, with significantly fewer side effects. The ancient Egyptians who preserved their dead with thyme, and the medieval herbalists who gave it to people with chest colds, were working with one of the most effective antimicrobials the plant kingdom has ever produced. Your eyes are growing heavier now, the way eyes do in the evening when the world softens and the body remembers what it is for. The garden holds its scent quietly. The sage and the thyme and the lavender from across the path are all mingling in the cool air, making something that has no name but that you know in your body as safety. The garden gate is open, and beyond it, the meadow stretches again. But this time, it is the meadow in evening, different from the morning meadow you began in. The grasses are darker, the flowers are closed, and the whole field lies under a sky that has now gone from blue to the deep plush indigo that arrives just after dusk. The first stars are fully visible now, and a pale moon is beginning to make its slow rise above the line of trees in the east. In the dimmer light, you notice plants you might have missed in the brightness of day. One of them is a low-growing herb with delicate white flowers, almost invisible against the pale evening grass. This is meadowsweet, one of the most important plants in the history of medicine. Meadowsweet contains salicylate compounds related to the same family as willow bark, as we saw earlier, and it was historically used for fever, pain, and stomach complaints across Europe. The ancient Celtic peoples considered it sacred, one of only 3 plants that were always associated with the Druid tradition. But meadowsweet's most important contribution to human health is not its direct medicinal use. It was from meadowsweet that the chemist Felix Hoffmann, working for Bayer in 1897, synthesized a compound that would become aspirin. The original name for aspirin, acetylsalicylic acid, was derived partly from Spirea ulmaria, the old Latin name for meadowsweet. The spear in aspirin comes from Spirea, from this plant growing in meadows at dusk with its small white flowers that catch the moonlight. Aspirin, one of the most important pharmaceuticals in human history, was named for a meadow flower. The flower was there first. There is something in that story that feels like justice or poetry, or perhaps both at once. The plant growing quietly in the meadow for thousands of years before anyone thought to write down its properties was already carrying something that would one day save millions of lives. It was simply waiting for someone to look closely enough. Beyond the meadowsweet, in a darker corner of the meadow where the grasses grow tallest, you notice a plant with broad, soft leaves and small, bell-shaped flowers hanging like little lanterns in the dark. This is motherwort, a plant whose name is a map of its history. It was used for centuries specifically to treat conditions of the heart and the womb, which the older healers called the seat of emotion. Motherwort was given to women in labor to ease anxiety and steady the heart. It was given to those with racing heartbeats and chronic worry. In traditional Chinese medicine, it is called Yi Mu Kao, which means beneficial mother herb, and it has been used for over 2,000 years for menstrual irregularities and postpartum support. Modern research has found that motherwort contains compounds that affect the heart's electrical conduction system. They genuinely reduce the heart rate in cases of mild palpitations. It also contains iridoid compounds with mild sedative properties, and leonarine, which relaxes the smooth muscle of the uterus. The traditional uses for the anxious heart, for the laboring womb, for the new mother, all have chemical explanations now. The ancient healers arrived at these uses through observation and care, and the simple method of paying attention to what happened when someone took the herb. If you are feeling deeply comfortable right now, if your body is settling down into the kind of rest it has been waiting for, please leave us a comment. We love knowing that you are finding peace here. And please do check our playlist of sleep stories if you haven't already. There are many more nights of quiet in there whenever you need them. The moon has risen fully now, and the meadow is silver in its light. Every blade of grass has its moon shadow. The flowers that were closed in the early dusk have found a kind of beauty in their closing. They are compact and still and patient, waiting for morning with perfect confidence that morning will come. The silver meadow is peaceful, and you walk through it slowly, feeling the cool night air on your skin, hearing the soft sounds of the dark. A distant owl, the rustle of something small and unhurried in the grass, the faint sound of the stream you passed earlier, still running in the dark, still not in a hurry. The world at night is different from the world by day, softer around the edges, more given to stillness, more patient. At the far edge of the meadow, where the land rises slightly toward a low rocky outcrop, you find a plant growing in thick, spreading mats, its tiny leaves dense and fragrant. This is oregano, Origanum vulgare, which in Greek means joy of the mountain, because it has always grown best on hillsides in the sun, in thin, rocky soil where other plants might struggle. Ancient Greeks placed oregano on the graves of loved ones, believing it helped the dead find joy in their next life. They also used it medicinally, as an antidote to certain poisons, as a treatment for respiratory illness, as a disinfectant for wounds. Oregano is among the most powerfully antimicrobial of all edible herbs. Its essential oil, which contains high concentrations of carvacrol and thymol, has been shown in laboratory studies to kill bacteria, viruses, and fungi with remarkable effectiveness. In some studies, oregano oil has demonstrated activity against antibiotic-resistant bacteria, which is significant at a time when antibiotic resistance has become a serious concern in modern medicine. The ancient Greeks who used it to disinfect wounds were working with something genuinely effective. They were not wrong. They were simply not yet in possession of the words to explain why they were right. The oregano on the rocky hillside smells intensely fragrant in the cool night air, warm and herbal, and somehow comforting. The smell of something that has always been food as well as medicine, which is to say, the smell of something that is simply, fundamentally good. Higher up the rocky slope, where the soil is thinnest and the moonlight falls clearly without obstruction, there is a low shrub with tiny scale-like leaves and bunches of small blue-gray berries. These are juniper berries, and their use as medicine goes back further than almost any written record. Juniper berries have been found in Egyptian tombs. They were used in ancient Greece for purification and for treating fever. Native American tribes used them for respiratory infections, digestive problems, and urinary tract conditions. In Northern Europe, juniper was burned to purify homes after illness, and the smoke was believed to drive away contagion, which, given what we now know about the antimicrobial properties of juniper smoke, may have had some genuine basis. Juniper berries contain compounds that are diuretic. They encourage the kidneys to produce more urine, which is why they were historically used for urinary and kidney conditions. They also contain compounds that are antimicrobial and anti-inflammatory. Juniper oil was used in medieval medicine to treat arthritis and muscle pain applied directly to the skin. The familiar scent of gin, which is flavored with juniper, comes from this very berry. Before gin was a drink, it was a medicine. Early Dutch gin was sold in apothecaries as a diuretic remedy. The recreational beverage came later. You stand on the rocky slope in the moonlight and look out over the meadow below, silver and still. The view from here is immense and quiet. The world looks very large from a hillside at night and very peaceful, and you feel very small in a way that is not lonely, but the opposite. The feeling of being held inside something enormous and gentle. The universe is large and old, and it has been making plants that heal things for an unimaginably long time. You are a very small part of that story, resting inside it, breathing its air. You descend the hillside slowly, and the rocky ground gives way again to softer earth, and the meadow wraps around you once more in its nighttime version, silver and still and full of sleeping things. The owl calls again, closer this time, a low, rounded sound that seems to belong to this hour, the way breathing belongs to sleep. You find a mossy stone to sit on, and you sit, and you look at the sky. The stars are very clear tonight, the way they are, when the air is clean and the light is low, and there is no hurry anywhere. You know some of these stars by name, perhaps, or perhaps not. It does not matter. You know them by their presence. They are old companions, whether or not you have names for them. Here, in the quiet of the night meadow, your thoughts drift back to the plants you have visited. Chamomile and lavender and elderberry and willow and garlic and valerian and yarrow and aloe and all the others. And you feel the weight of all those thousands of years of careful observation, the accumulated wisdom of people who looked at the world around them with attention and love, who asked what helps, who remembered what worked, who taught it to the next generation, and the one after that, and the one after that. Among all the plants you have not yet visited tonight, one seems to rise in the mind like a gentle insistence. Growing at the very edge of the meadow, where the land flattens and softens near a place where water sometimes collects after rain, there is a small yellow flower on a short stem, growing in a rosette of slightly bitter, toothed leaves. This is dandelion, the most dismissed, the most overlooked, the most thoroughly misunderstood plant in the Western world. Dandelion has been used as a food and a medicine for thousands of years across Europe, Asia, and the Americas. The Arabic physician Ibn Sina, known in the West as Avicenna, wrote about dandelion in his Canon of Medicine, one of the most influential medical texts of the medieval period. Traditional Chinese medicine has used dandelion for over 1,000 years to treat liver conditions, digestive problems, and infections. Dandelion is genuinely, measurably good for the liver. It stimulates bile production and flow, which helps the body digest fats and process toxins. It is diuretic, meaning it supports kidney function. The leaves are among the most nutritionally dense of any edible green, higher in calcium than milk, rich in vitamins A, C, and K, and containing prebiotic fiber that feeds beneficial gut bacteria. The root, when roasted, makes a caffeine-free drink that supports liver and digestive health. Every part of the plant, root, leaf, flower, is useful. And yet, in most of the Western world, we spray them with poison. The dandelion in the night meadow holds its closed flower head like a small fist, waiting for morning to open. There is something quietly stubborn about a dandelion. It grows through pavement, through neglect, through being pulled up and poisoned and dismissed. It keeps coming back. It was here before the lawn was invented. It will be here after. If you would like to share this video with a friend who might need a soft and healing hour tonight, we would be so grateful. And as always, the playlist is there whenever you need another journey into the quiet green world. Beside the dandelion, a little further into the wet ground, there is a plant that in daylight you might have seen clearly, but in moonlight you see only as a tall, dark shape, its seeds clustered at the top of its stalk like a dark crown. This is milk thistle, Silybum marianum, and it has been used as a liver medicine for 2,000 years. Ancient Greeks used it. The Roman naturalist Pliny the Elder wrote about it. Medieval European herbalists used it extensively. In traditional Ayurvedic medicine, milk thistle was used for liver and gallbladder conditions. The active compound in milk thistle seeds, silymarin, has been the subject of extensive modern research. It is one of the best studied plant compounds in the world. Silymarin protects liver cells from damage, stimulates the regeneration of liver tissue, and has antioxidant properties that reduce liver inflammation. It has been studied as a complementary treatment for chronic liver disease, cirrhosis, and the liver toxicity caused by certain medications and chemical exposures. Modern hospitals in some European countries use milk thistle extract as part of the treatment for Amanita mushroom poisoning, one of the most dangerous forms of liver damage there is. The ancient healers who reached for milk thistle in cases of liver trouble were reaching for something genuinely therapeutic. The night air has grown very still. Even the owl has gone quiet. The world is deep in its own rest, and you are part of that rest, and it is a comfortable feeling to be part of something larger and quieter than your own thoughts. The sky has shifted again from the dense blue of deep night to the first suggestion of pre-dawn. Not light yet, not exactly, but a subtle change in tone at the horizon, as if the darkness there has become fractionally less certain of itself. This hour belongs to no particular day. It is the seam between one day and the next, and it has a quality of suspension, of beautiful pause, that belongs only to itself. You are still sitting on your mossy stone at the edge of the meadow, and you are deeply comfortable. Your body has grown heavy in the way of sleep, and your thoughts have grown soft and slow. And you are aware of the world around you, in the way you are aware of things in the moments just before you fully surrender to sleep. Warmly, vaguely, with affection, but without urgency. One last few plants come to you like slow, quiet visitors in this pre-dawn hour. The first is ginger, Zingiber officinale, which does not grow wild in this meadow, but which you have carried with you in memory because ginger is one of the oldest medicines in human history. Written records of its medicinal use date back more than 5,000 years to ancient India and China. In Sanskrit, ginger is called Vishvabheshaj, which means universal medicine. In traditional Chinese medicine, it is classified as warming, and it is used to treat cold conditions, digestive sluggishness, nausea, poor circulation, the kind of chill that lives in the bones. Ancient sailors carried crystallized ginger on long sea voyages specifically for nausea. It worked for seasickness then, as it works for motion sickness and morning sickness now. The compounds in ginger, gingerols, and shogaols are anti-inflammatory, anti-nausea, and analgesic. They work on pain by inhibiting the same pathways that aspirin and ibuprofen work on, but through slightly different mechanisms and without the gastric side effects. Several well-designed studies have shown ginger to be as effective as some anti-nausea medications for post-operative nausea and chemotherapy-induced nausea. For morning sickness and pregnancy, it is often the safest option available. The 5,000-year-old observation that ginger settles the stomach and warms the body has been confirmed again and again by modern research. The second plant that comes to you is turmeric, curcuma longa, bright golden orange, the color of sunset, the color of the sun. Turmeric has been used in Ayurvedic medicine for more than 4,000 years. In India, it is called haldi, and it is central not only to cooking, but to ceremony, to skin care, to the treatment of inflammation in all its forms. The active compound, curcumin, is one of the most studied natural compounds in the world. It is a powerful anti-inflammatory and antioxidant, and it appears to modulate multiple pathways involved in chronic disease. The challenge with turmeric is absorption. Curcumin is not easily taken up by the body from food alone. But ancient Ayurvedic healers discovered that combining turmeric with black pepper dramatically increases absorption. Black pepper contains piperine, which enhances curcumin absorption by up to 2,000%. The ancient combination of turmeric and pepper in Indian cooking was not just a culinary choice. It was a medicinal insight, arrived at through centuries of careful trial and observation. The third is ashwagandha, Withania somnifera, a plant used in Ayurvedic medicine for more than 3,000 years as an adaptogen, a term that describes herbs that help the body adapt to stress. Ancient Ayurvedic texts describe ashwagandha as a rasayana, a rejuvenating herb, one that promotes vitality and longevity. It was given to the young to build strength and to the old to restore it. It was given to those who were exhausted, anxious, or depleted by illness. Modern research has found that ashwagandha significantly reduces cortisol levels, cortisol being the body's primary stress hormone. In clinical studies, ashwagandha supplementation has been found to reduce perceived stress and anxiety, improve sleep quality, enhance physical performance and recovery, and support thyroid function. It is among the most rigorously studied adaptogens in the world. The Ayurvedic practitioners who gave it to exhausted people 3,000 years ago were giving them something that genuinely worked. The 3,000-year-old prescription has been confirmed by 21st century science. If you are still here with us, drifting in this half-sleep between the plants and the dark and the soft pre-dawn sky, please do leave a like before you close your eyes completely. It means the world to us and to the people it helps find their way here. The horizon is very faintly pale now. Not dawn yet. The sun has not announced itself. But the sky at the horizon has moved from deep blue to a cool, soft gray lavender, the color of the inside of a mussel shell, the color of the most tender kind of morning. The stars directly above are still perfectly clear and sharp. The ones near the horizon have faded one by one, giving way to the coming light. The meadow is full of silence, not the silence of absence. There is life everywhere in this meadow, but the silence of deep rest. The plants are all there, exactly where they have always been. The chamomile with its white petals furled for the night, the valerian with its heavy scent hanging in the cool air, the yarrow low and silver gray, the rosemary by the cottage wall smelling of memory. They have been here for thousands of years, doing what they have always done, offering themselves quietly, asking nothing, needing nothing from us but the willingness to pay attention. The ancient people who learned to read these plants were not separate from nature. They were inside it, the way you are inside a house, surrounded and sheltered and held. They watched the seasons turn and learned which plants appeared in spring and which waited for autumn. They learned that the root was different from the leaf, and the leaf different from the flower. They learned which part to use and how to prepare it, when to dry and when to use fresh, when to brew and when to apply, when to inhale the steam and when to swallow the tea. They learned from watching animals, which often know without being taught which plants ease pain and which settle the stomach. They learned from their children, who had no fear of plants and touched and smelled and tasted in ways that adults had forgotten to do, and they passed it on. That is the thing that moves you sitting in the pre-dawn meadow on your mossy stone, with the stars slowly surrendering to the coming light. They passed it on. The grandmother who knew chamomile taught her granddaughter. The healer who discovered that willow bark eased pain told the next healer and the next. The knowledge traveled in books and songs and stories and quiet kitchen conversations across thousands of years, and it arrived here, in this story, in this night, which is almost over now. You think of all the hands that held all those plants across all those centuries, the hands that gathered elderberries in autumn and pressed them slowly into syrup, the hands that peeled valerian root and dried it in the sun, the hands that braided lavender into sachets and slid them beneath pillows where children lay sleeping, the hands that pressed fresh aloe to a burn and felt the immediate gift of the plant's cooling gel. Those hands are gone now, their names forgotten or never recorded, but what they knew is still here. It is still in the plants. The plants are still growing. The sky is lighter now. A bird has begun to sing somewhere in the trees, a single clear note, then a pause, then the note again, then the beginning of a phrase. It is the first bird of morning, the one who always starts before the others, the one who has always seemed to know something the rest of us are still finding out. You breathe in slowly, one long and peaceful breath, and in this breath, you take in everything the night has offered: the chamomile and the lavender, the willow and the yarrow, the sage and the thyme, the dandelion and the milk thistle, the elderberry and the echinacea, the ginger and the turmeric and the ashwagandha, all of it, the 10,000 years of careful attention, the quiet wisdom of the earth, the extraordinary generosity of growing things. And you breathe out, and in the breathing out, you let everything go. The knowledge is held in the world. It does not need you to hold it. You can set it down. You can rest. The meadow is safe. The plants are there. The earth has always known how to take care of things, and it will go on knowing long after this night has become morning, and the morning has become a day, and the day has folded itself gently into another night. The earth keeps its medicine. The plants keep their quiet wisdom. And you are allowed now to close your eyes. The bird is still singing. The sky is still softening. Somewhere nearby, a small breath of wind moves through the grass, making the only sound it knows how to make, a long, drawn-out sigh, like something deeply content. Rest now. You are safe. You are held. The world is very old and very well, and so are you. If this story brought you peace tonight, please leave a like. It truly helps more people find their way to this quiet corner. And our full playlist of sleeping nature stories is waiting for you whenever you need another soft and healing night. Thank you for being here.